You're listening to the Beer Mile Podcast.
Like, let's get ready to rumble!
Kiss my ass and my anus.
It's finally famous and it's finally solved. Yeah, it's finally solved.
And now we're in the podcast.
And now we're here.
Now we're in the podcast.
Jesus Christ.
Welcome to the podcast.
Who are you?
My name.
Let's introduce
is Chris.
I'm
Adam.
And you're listening to the Beer Mile Podcast,
where we talk to athletes and give a lot of inspiration to our listeners around the world so that you can go out and achieve big things.
Ooh. Oh, is this legit though? We're doing it.
I think we're doing it.
All right, we're doing it. Hey everyone, Chris's wife says that this one has to be quick, so we won't maybe have as many funny bits.
She normally doesn't want it to be quick, but in this specific case,
I think I think she'll take what she can get, if you know what I mean. Let's stay it in. Let's
Keep
stay
it in.
Guys, the time.
Keep it in. Well, it's at least in the Patreon version. We'll make a decision later. Don't have to decide that right now.
Speaking of time and keeping things quick, we got a very speedy boy on the podcast today.
Very speedy boy. He's a medalist on the world stage. He's run 142 for 800. He's run 351, 350, almost 350, 351, multiple time Olympian. Clayton Murphy from the Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island. You know that song?
Oh my God, no.
Do you know that song?
No, but it's kind of triggering.
My wife didn't know that song either.
Dude, I
had to learn that in elementary school. It's a way to memorize all the states in alphabetical order.
So we did trivia. I've been trying to do trivia more because, I guess I'm at that age where that's what you do.
Where that's the fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Guys, you guys want to play trivia at 5 p.m. at the local restaurant and then go to bed at 8?
You guys want to get fucking loaded, lose to some teenagers who are cheating on their phone, and then go home? I don't know. So in high school or middle school, did you have to learn all the states and capitals?
Yes, we had to do that in elementary, and that's why we had to learn that song.
I don't remember a thing.
You don't remember them?
What's the capital of Delaware? Dover. Who the fuck knows what Dover is?
I actually didn't remember that. Yeah, capitals are harder. I could name every state just because of that song, but they need a capital song. That's the problem. We'll make that
standard education. Public education has failed this podcast.
Yeah,
we need education reform, and we need it now.
We need DJ Mustard on the beat. Drop a beat. I'm gonna do a capital rap right now. Let's go. No, I'm actually not gonna do that. Just
that's
kidding.
In the outro.
We're not gonna do that.
Cut that.
Cut. Okay, back to Clayton Murphy. We get the scoop on how training's going, how racing's going, how life's going, how wine's going, how board games are going, how being married to another Olympian is going. We get it all.
Damn, that was really concise. I think,
very concise. And we get your listener questions answered.
Yeah, we're faithful. We got some listeners.
That's right. Thanks for sending those listener questions.
Some listener questions. I can't fucking make the word.
Stick around to the outro where we might say something else of value or we might not. And before we get into the conversation with Clayton,
bury the lead. That's sick.
Before we get into this conversation with Clayton, we got to shout out my t-shirt. If you're on Spotify, there's video versions on Spotify now. It's kind of strictly for
pretty cool
podcasts like us who have the beta access.
Because we are betas.
We are betas. We're not alphas.
Wink, wink.
We have the beta access. You can watch the video version of this on Spotify now, which is freaking hype. You can also give us a 5-star rating on Spotify now. Also hype. Help others find the show. 5-star ratings. Patreon.com/beermile if you want uncut, uncensored, and behind the scenes and giveaways and all that jazz. But Manscaped, if you, like us, are big into New Year's resolutions.
Do you know where this is going before you started it? Okay.
No. I start saying the sentence and I hope that it just comes.
I hope I come too.
Manscaped, if you are into New Year's resolutions,
okay,
I think that you would be into making a New Year's resolution about just taking better care of yourself. Well,
sure.
I think that's what most New Year's resolutions are about anyway.
Yeah.
And one of those ways, as Clayton will give us in his words of wisdom as well, is, was it eat well, sleep well, dress well. And dress well can mean anything. It could literally mean dressing for the occasion, but it also just means, getting in that right mindset for what you're tackling for the day.
Champion mindset.
And I think dressing well in this
nuts.
case, building in that confidence.
You heard it from Clayton himself.
That's right. Clayton said, basically, in other
publicly endorsed
Manscaped. In other words,
Manscaped. Shout out that contract renewal. You see what we're doing.
That's right.
Here?
Hit up Clayton if you are looking for some sponsored athletes to support your brand. But use the code BeerMile, 20% off, free shipping. Code BeerMile.
Best deal
no
you're
spaces. It is the best deal you're going to get right now because Black Friday's gone, Cyber Monday's gone, holiday sale's gone. Now it's just the Beer Mile sale.
The war on
20%
Christmas
off.
is over. We're into the new year.
Oh, another year survived of buying Christmas gifts.
Speaking of plug-in shit and Speaking of plug-in shit and Clayton, he has some YouTube goodies for folks coming up in a couple weeks, I think. So
maybe even by the time this episode drops, probably it's already out there. So check out Clayton on YouTube. He's got behind the scenes on all his workouts and shows you the good and the bad and learn what it's like to train like the best in the world. It's pretty freaking hype. I love watching it. So let's get into this conversation with Clayton Murphy. Let's get into this conversation with Clayton.
Oh, it's like the boxer guy.
Let's
get ready to rumble.
All right, so we just had on Devon Allen, your fellow podcaster on the Track Boys podcast and fellow gamer as well. So actually, let's start right off with this. One of our listener questions was, who could win in a 300-meter race, you or Devon?
I think we decided on like the 350, 400. So probably I'm going to give it to like Devon, probably three.
On the 300, okay.
I think it'd be close, but just because he's my friend, I'll say that he probably might have the 3. Granted, if it's like someone random like that, maybe
you'd want to
give it to him so easy.
Yeah.
But I think 350, 400 would be 350 would probably be where it becomes pretty damn close.
Interesting. Okay. How fast can you run a 200? Are you in the 22s?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I figured.
I ran 300 yesterday and went through in like 23 flat in the beginning of the 200 or the beginning of 300. So
damn.
Yeah. I mean, just in Rio, we went out in 21 point.
That's true.
Yeah. 22 point. Yeah. We've been there, done that in the middle of a race, which is not the greatest idea in the world.
It seems like, and maybe this is just my perception or anecdotally, what I remember from races, but it seems like championship races often go out super quick in the 800. Like, I don't know if it's nerves and the fact that
people wanting to get out. Yeah,
you're in the final. People want to get out. They want to get out of trouble. Like, is that common, I guess? Is that how you would say that compared to just your standard 800 race? Once you get into world champs or Olympics or something like that, people are a little antsier and get out quicker?
I think there's 2 things you got to think about in championship races. One is 90% of our season, we have a pacemaker or lights in the track to follow.
Very true. Yeah.
So 90% of the races you run in are controlled. Now, whether or not they're actually run to the controlled like goal, that's another question. And then the other thing is similar to what you're saying is in the fact of like, you take the pacemaker out. So you take that controlled factor out and then you add in the fact of, unless you have a guy who's like a true front runner, that's like a David Rudisha type guy that's going to, take the lead. But even then they still went out fast. It just becomes up in the air of like, who's going to do what. And then you get the complete outlier, like the Tokyo final where there's not one part of that race that was fast except for the last 250.
Right.
How do you approach races differently when there is a pacemaker or like the light rail system versus one where there's not?
I think it's all about strategicness. Obviously, different parts of the season play in a different factor. I think a lot of people don't think there's a big difference between like a 49 flat pace, a 49.5 pace. Like that's a huge difference to us, at least to me, at least. So there's a factor of that. Who's in the race plays, I think, more into the things and what the pacemaker is or who the pacemaker is or what the pace is. Because then ultimately in the end, you could have a pacemaker and then if you saw at the end of the Diamond League season, like no one's going with the pacemaker at the last like 2/3 of the season last year, because all the front runners were not running either in the front or not running at all. So we were kind of, a lot of us left hanging to either take the leads we weren't comfortable with or not run as fast as what we probably could have.
This last season especially, there were a lot of haters saying that, not even throwing your name in the mix for the Olympic trials.
Naysayers, sure.
Multiple sources, podcasts, whatever, saying, basically discounting you. It's like, it's Bryce, it's Donavan, who's the third spot, not even saying that you had a chance just because your season wasn't going great up until that point. But then you stepped on the track and raced well and crushed. So I guess, how, going into that race, were you yourself, were you still confident? I know you were kind of getting through a hamstring injury and all that. Were you confident going in, or were you also kind of questioning how it was going to go once you towed the line?
I think like indoor season, I ran that one indoor race, and the night before I had a calf strain, and that like put a stop to my indoor season. So once I got through that kind of like bump in the road, every week after that was like a slow, steady progression for me. There was no real jumps. There was no real like huge workouts where I walked away from the track. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be an Olympian based on that workout. But every single workout I walked home, I was like, that's another like notch in the belt that gives me some confidence. Like every single week was just more and more confidence. And every race was built around getting prepared for the Olympic trials. I was racing every 2 weeks. I was getting on this sequence where I could get a good race in, come back, get a really, really good a week of work in, and then race again, and had this sequencing. And I knew I was fit when I ran that Nashville race, and I didn't even run that fast. But I went out for the first like 800, 900 meters, just like chasing everything I could chase. And I'd worked out like 2.5 days, two or 3 days before that was like one of the hardest workouts of the season. And I knew that if I could go out as hard as I did, as relaxed as I did, and then fight back the way I did over the last 150 with the worst tired legs I've ever had all season, that like I could run like 143 point something. I didn't think I'd run 143.1, but like 143 point high and compete to at least make the team, if not win the Olympic trials after that race. Which a lot of people obviously see, I think I ran like 339, 340 or 338 or something, like right in the middle of the road for me. And everyone's just like, oh, he's not fit. He barely won. But there's so much more that obviously that happens. 90% of what people see is like, people don't see 90% of what happens as elite athletes,
Right.
Yeah.
Are you, you're obviously like a fan of the sport. I mean, you have a podcast, you and your wife follow it very closely. Are you a guy that does your homework before towing the line with other competitors in the 800? Yeah,
I'm sometimes too analytical. I've always been that way. Been very like detailed, analytical, race strategy, breaking down everything. I mean, I'll even in the prelims of Worlds or Olympics look up every single dude in my field, even if it's like, there's obviously some guys who get in there that don't have the PRs that necessarily put them in the chance to qualify, but I'm still looking up and seeing who they are and what they've done and what their history is. It's something for me that's kind of just puts my mind at ease and eliminates a factor of, if I'm prepared when I step on the line of these scenarios, then nothing's going to catch me off guard during a race.
What do you like when you're doing your research? What stands out as something that you would bookmark or put in the back of your head for the race?
At this point in my career, I know a lot of race strategies of top guys that race the circuit on a regular basis. So there's not as much of the like video research, but young in my career, I was watching a lot of videos on like major guys I was competing against in the 800. But something that jumps out to me is like, I look at it from my lens of my lens of like, if there's been a steady progression all season, like this dude could be one that like pops off in this race. And that if he's there at like 650, 700, like this dude's bound, like has a good chance to run a good race. Like it's not necessarily going to be like a fluke. Or, you kind of look at past seasons, if their progression's similar and if they've popped off at major championships, like you kind of know like, okay, even though he's only run 146 all season, like there's a pretty decent shot. He runs well in the prelims or semis to get through. And like, this is a guy that like on paper, according to season's best, is not necessarily in it. But if he's there at the end, you got to make sure you respect him and pay attention to what he's doing.
So coming off the win at the Olympic trials then, and with the ahead of the Olympics, then where was your mind at as far as like, I mean, were you going into the Olympics expecting to win it? Like, were you confident? How are things going kind of between the trials and the Olympics? And then ultimately, the Olympics were what they were. How did you feel about the performance there and everything?
Yeah, for me, mentally, it was 100% all in. Like there was not a doubt in my head that I couldn't win a gold medal and walk away from there without a goal. Physically, it was a little bit tougher than what I thought because of the week before the trials. I had a hamstring issue. I had the hamstring strain, literally the last rep of the last major workout before the trials, which kind of took me out of that week prior to trials. I run 3 extremely hard, stressful races on my body, pushed my body to the absolute edge. At some points, had no idea if I was going to make it through warm-ups to the race to points during the trials. And then obviously at that point, it took 7-8 days for my hamstring and my body to kind of at least get back to some kind of normalcy. So my training was so in that key little 3 to 4 week window out from the Olympics, my training was completely like different than what it should have been. And so I felt good though going into it. And I really did in the prelims, I felt okay. And I really pushed through. In the semifinals, I felt really, really solid and ran to qualify in both of those races. And going into the final, I almost knew what would happen. And which is the most frustrating part because that was like race plan A for me going into it was exactly what happened. And for whatever reason, I just got passive for like 5 meters at 200 meters. And then at that point, it just became like game over. Like I made the decision to sit in the back versus like sprinting to the front again. And who knows had I sprinted back to the front if something would have been different. But at that point, 8 of those guys in that field were as good as me over the last 400 meters. And it just becomes a foot race. And they all had 10-meter head starts.
Yeah.
It is crazy that 0.4% of the race determines
split decisions. And that was actually something I wanted to ask about was so before the race, you're, thinking through different things that could happen, scenarios, studying, whatever, like you say, you're, a student of the sport. In the actual race itself though, do you think, or are you thinking about strategy and things like that? Or is it pretty much just all instinct and just going with the flow? Like you're in a complete flow state at that point. It's happening and you're not necessarily thinking.
Yeah. I think there's like 2 stages to it. Like you have to make the decision very instinctually. You cannot like process it. Like I made the decision to be passive at 200 and then immediately following that decision, I realized I made the wrong decision. But like at that point I had time to kind of reevaluate my options, which I felt like I had 2 options, which was to sit where I was and conserve energy and leave it to the end or make a move towards the front. And I decided in that split decision in that second decision of the race. So there is a decision making, obviously. But I try to rely as heavily on instinct as possible because the least amount of hesitation, obviously, you don't want to leave anything to chance, I guess is what you're saying, is what I'm trying to say.
Is that something you feel like you can train at all? Or is it really just like running through the scenarios to kind of drill it into your, I don't know if you'd call it your subconscious? I think
it's learning from it. And I think the best way to learn from it is obviously doing it, but it's not necessarily doing it. It's walking away from it and then learning from what you did and actually like thinking through it and being a very like outside critic of yourself. Like for me, there's a lot of like, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? What could I do better? Like there's a huge analysis process that goes on just as much prior to race as after the race. And I don't do it within the first like couple hours of the race. I let myself process because obviously if you win, you're immediately going to think you did everything perfect. And if you lost, you're immediately going to think everything you did wrong. And I'm extremely, extremely hard on myself. So like I gave myself almost like a week after Tokyo before I even thought back to race. And I haven't even watched it back, to be honest, because it's just like, to me, it's like, I still haven't processed the fact of like, I'm still being extremely hard on myself. And I know what I did. Like I already said it in this, like, I know the gist of what I did wrong. I've talked through it with coach and with my performance coach and stuff. So for me though, you learn more in that breakdown and that analysis after the race and actually learning and just saying like, oh, like I made the wrong decision. Like there's so much more that goes into it.
Right. Especially because immediately following the race, most of the reaction is going to be based on feel and not really critical emotion thinking.
Yep. Yeah. Not actual like performance based. And there's a lot of scenarios like maybe you did make the right decision, but someone else was just better than you on their day. But then you're going to walk away from the race. I've walked away from the race so many times and been like, damn, like I really I lost that race. And then I think back on it, it's like, what else was I going to do? Like based on my fitness level, based on training, based on, what I did, like I made all the right decisions. I just wasn't physically like able to commit or physically able to perform where I wanted to be.
What scenario would you rather have walking away with, a loss or a close like second place where it was because of a move that you thought was like a poor move, or if you went like all out and you literally just like couldn't physically put yourself there?
Dang, that's tough. Neither option is great. I take option C,
Take the W.
But no, I think, I don't know. I'd rather get beat, obviously, just like mano. We both made great moves. Like one to the race, I think back to me is like New Balance indoor. Was that like 2018, 2019 when Donavan and I raced to the line, and I led the race for an indoor race, and I made every strategic move perfect that I wanted to. Like the only thing I think back on that race, and I think back because it's like one of the few races where I led ever and like was extremely confident in doing it, was like I had a slight hesitation with like 150 meters to go. Just the slightest bit of like, do I have the legs to finish? And I did. And I just let Donavan go. But like I think back to that race, and that was truly like Donavan and I were training at like such a high level together at that time of like we pushed each other to the absolute end. And I think like both of us ran that race almost like 99% perfect strategically, and we ended up literally crossing the line at the same time. Like in that race, I always think back of like that's like the fun ones. Like even though I lost that race, it's still a really fun one to think back on that. Like we raced to the line, we both ran it with a different strategy than probably we normally would, but yet physically like we almost like finished it like identical, obviously.
Yeah, I think didn't we watch that like in the living room 3 years ago?
Oh, yeah.
That was awesome.
We watched like pretty much every track race several times. So coming off of then like going back further to your first Olympics, to the Rio Olympics, like how did you leave those games feeling about the race? Like I'm assuming your expectations might have been different kind of going into it as your first Olympics and whatnot. Like how did you leave that event in comparison to, obviously how you left Tokyo?
I mean, I left Rio like on cloud nine. I mean, coming off my first major, I guess not first, I ran a world championship before, but like the first Olympic games, like first time I felt like I was really there and like really belong there. Like obviously like, I don't know, just felt completely different. And so like I walked away from there, like on this like cloud nine or whatever, but honestly, like when I think back to it, and I've thought back to it before, like I'd say like a couple months later, like I look back on it and I was like, that was the goal anyways. After I made the final was like 2 medal. So it's not like I all of a sudden like I achieved something that like I never set out to achieve. And so I think when I realized that like I set this like huge goal in front of me at the time that I thought was like unachievable. And then I realized like, wow, I actually achieved something that I thought was unachievable, versus just like the thrill of the medal, like added just level of confidence on the underlying surface that like I can just always kind of fall back on. It's like, doesn't matter how unachievable, like I think the goal is, or it looks like it's going to be, that like, if I believe in it, like we can make something happen.
I would say like you really popped off, like though 2015, 2016 was like when you really popped off, and like, I hadn't heard of you before that. You made a big jump, like time wise, competitive wise, everything. So I'm curious where, like your time at Akron, and when did you like realize professional running was in the cards, and I don't know, like get that next kind of jump in fitness to like really pursue it as a career?
I think the jump didn't come necessarily, like I can't think of like one race where the jump came. Obviously getting third and third like the year before at NCAAs, or like in 2015 getting third and third was like where I kind of like made the, like, I felt like I made the jump, like that indoor. And then, but prior to that, I remember the year before at a dual meet, coach was like, or he's like, actually, was it that indoor season? I think it was that indoor season, sophomore year. Coach was like, you can run 148 and 800. I laughed at him. I was just like, what are you talking about? Like, no, I can't. It's a dual meet. Like, it's a Kent State dual meet. Like, no one's here. Like, we're running like 153. Like, I'll run it as a workout. And like, my teammate paced me through, and we were supposed to be 53, 55. And he paced me through in 55, and I ran 55, walked off the track and like went straight to my jog because it was just like that easy. And then he's like, see, you could have ran 147 today. I was just like, you're right. Like, I might have an okay knack at this. Like, so like that kind of to me was where I realized like the 800 is kind of like a nice sweet spot for me. But ultimately the 800 still was like always a training event for the mile. Like for me, I always see myself in training as a miler, and the 800 is just kind of like the after product of my training. There's very little that I specifically do that's like 800 based in a season. I'd say like less than 20% of my workouts are like true 800 workouts. Like everything else is like mile based and like I come down from it. So that kind of gave me that confidence that like I can run well in the 800. I already had kind of had that confidence in the mile. That's kind of where I broke through with that. And then I'd say 2016 indoor when I won was like the first big race where I was like this is where I can like go beyond the collegiate level. Like when I went NCAA indoors and like set a facility record and ran 146, like that's when I was like, okay, like we can go to the next level with this. We can get through this collegiate season, but like that's when things started to look up.
You're mentioning the mile here, so are you foreshadowing it all to being back up, like more focused on the mile in the future? Are you sticking with the 800 as the main event for the foreseeable future?
I think to me, like the 800 is what I run in championships, but to me, it truly is like 50-50. Like this indoor season, like running 1 mile, 800 mile, 1,000. I'm going to run the 800 USA's probably. So like, again, like it'll come down to I'll only run 1 800 all indoor season, but then I'll run the 800 at championships. So it's like, oddly enough, like I really think the mile is probably more my main event. It's just I run the 800 at championships for now. So I probably think like 800 probably outdoor for sure, probably this year. And then after that, I think there's probably, I don't know, throw a number on it, like 60%. I'd run the 800, 40% I run the 1500 after this year. I'd say it's closer to 50-50 truly after this year.
We have some listeners who are also fans of your YouTube channel. So you've started sharing out some of your workouts, recording some videos. Do you think that actually one of the listener questions was, do you think that keeps you more accountable? Like, does knowing that there are people out there watching what you do in that workout, does that make you show up a little bit more and, you know, put a little more into it, or does that not really have an effect on it?
Well, first thing is like YouTube is coming back. Hint, hint, wink, wink. There's a huge comeback thing going on.
Everyone go subscribe, smash it,
week
baby.
or two. I took a break from being the fan of the sport / being like beyond training over the fall and into the winter. So that is, there's some large ideas on the way, I'll say. Hint, hint, wink, wink in the next like couple of days. They'll see maybe a couple of those depending on when it's closes. And then, but like, as far as like accountability, no, I don't think so at all. Like to me, like I'm going to do the workout anyways. I'm going to bust my ass anyways. Like to me, it's like, it just kind of shows, I like showing the positives and negatives a lot more than like, I think a lot of people do. If at all. I think there's very few athletes who really pull back the curtain as much as I try to, which is something that I want to do even more, is like really show the behind the scenes of like being a professional athlete and like what goes into it. As well as like, just like, I remember the one day I had a really bad run and I literally cut it like 2 miles short and I posted on my Instagram story and I was like, guys, like this happens. Like I went out for 6-8 miles and I think I ran like 4.5 and my heart rate was like skyrocketing. And I was just like, guys, like this stuff happens. Like it doesn't mean that you're a bad athlete or that your training's bad. It's like, this happens to the best of us. And I had like 12 coaches like email me or text me or write back on Instagram. It was just like, that was like the greatest thing ever. Like, thank you for sharing that. Cause I have so many athletes who like get so hard on themselves or like think they're like such a bad athlete. And that to me is like where like the YouTube and the Instagram stories and the reels and stuff like that. And the content behind the scenes really kind of come to fruition when I get those kind of messages from coaches. Cause ultimately like that's who I want to affect the most. Like fans of the sport are cool and all, like having no offense. Having you guys watch the channel is awesome. Like it's great. I love when fans of sport, but like, honestly, like I would rather just be all high schoolers. I mean, I got half the views because like, to me, like that's the kid I was, you know, I didn't have that. Sure. I didn't look at professional athletes. I had no idea what I was doing in high school. And to be able to be accessible like that to high school athletes and let them learn from us, both from the positives and negatives, I think is like what makes it worthwhile.
Yeah. Why do you think, as far as like other professional athletes go, why do you think the majority don't really show a lot of the negatives behind the scenes?
I'll speak on myself because I used to be that athlete. I think I created what I started out as a professional athlete is like you create this like brand around yourself and you don't want to like taint that brand yourself at all. And there's already enough critics out there. There's already Let's Run boards. There's already Twitter. There's already like these trolls. Like there's already enough people who are trying to like take you down already. And like, you don't want to stand in your own way. And I also see for me is like the negatives are like, can be negatives. Like I said, you can take negatives as a negative. And the last thing you want to do, I think, is compile negativity on top of itself with like portraying it. And like, it's almost like one of those things where like, if you don't necessarily speak it into existence, that it exists.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
But for me now, it's like more of a learning experience from the negatives and like the hard times. And like yesterday I did a workout Friday and I recorded it, and like I got the booster on Wednesday. So like I was nowhere near 100% on Friday, and I easily could have just been like, we're not going to film it anymore.
Yeah.
Like I'm off.
Don't
like
put it up.
My 1,000-meter times are a couple seconds off. I'm like struggling to hit these times. Like, let's stop recording it. But like, I like recorded it all, and that's sent to it's like getting edited right now. It's going to be one of the first videos I put up, is like this imperfect workout that I think shows that like you can fight through a lot of adversity, and you can still get huge positives out of the day, even though if it's not like a perfect workout.
Does it make it harder, or like, does it weigh more on you filming that type of stuff where you're already having a shitty workout? And because obviously like with stuff that we do, if we're filming stuff and it's like not as fun, then it's harder to film it.
No, I agree. I think it's a little bit different because like I'm not ever paying attention to the dude there with the camera. Like obviously like he's somewhat there, but like at the same time, like it's like I'm focused on what I'm doing. And like the thought process comes after of like, do I still want to post this? Like to me, it's like there's some workouts where like either the footage isn't good or like there was just a lot going on that kind of can affect it more than just like, was it a positive or negative workout?
Well, one thing I don't think I heard you say that I was wondering if like this plays into it at all. So I know like, okay, in the example where you have a bad workout, putting it out there you could maybe see that as now my competitors like see that I'm weak and they're not gonna, they're gonna have more confidence against me now, something like that. Or I know like pro runners posting on Strava, for example, like some more and more are starting to put their runs and workouts on Strava, but there's that component of like, one, secrecy of what you're doing, and two, like you want to, I don't know, you don't want to look bad or have your competitors
count you out.
Gain confidence on you or gain an edge on you for whatever reason. So I don't know, what did that like factor into your decision making before you launched the YouTube channel of like, should I really be putting out my secret sauce, so to speak?
It did. Like I had a conversation with my coach about it. But we kind of talked about it and we sat down and we're like 98% of what I'm doing is like out there already. Like, it's not like by this point, like I'm using stuff that like Dave Waddle trained, Joaquin Cruz trained, like all the great 800 guys, like all their training is like out there. And like, we pull from that already and obviously mix and match it to the recipe for me. But like what I do doesn't work for Donavan. What I do doesn't work for Bryce. Like what I do doesn't work for Isaiah. So like, even if I put out every single 100% of my training log, like, and Donavan went and did it, like Donovan's not like, maybe he does. I'm discounting him. He's a great athlete, but like, I don't think Donavan has the same success level. He trains for Donavan Brazier. Like, right. I think as an elite athlete, it's much different. I think if you're like quote unquote using this, like, but even then I was gonna say you use like a cookie cutter training plan, but like that's out there already. You can, you can already get like quote unquote, like the cookie cutter, like couch to 5K training plans out there, are accessible. So it's not like, so that's like kind of what it went into it. And then go back to like, you're talking about like the negativity and like competitors. Like for me, like the bad workouts, I think I would rather my competitors think that I'm discount me out. I mean, look at trial
underdog.
Like when I got that underdog mentality, like it's so like for me, like positive, negative, like I don't see it that way. Like if I look at it, like I would rather see the negative workouts from Donavan and see where he's struggling and gain that than see the positive ones and be like, oh shoot, like now I gotta work. I gotta work. I gotta work way harder now. Like I'm gonna, like if I post a great workout, like I know they're seeing it and gonna go out there and potentially like, push themselves an extra 5% to like try to, counter.
Yeah. Good point. Have you ever thought about trying to train like full time with any, like, I don't know, say Donavan or, I know Bryce is like a different brand and everything, but have you thought about your, trying to get together with any of these others that are like right at that same level as you and building that out? Or because it seems like you're doing most of your stuff solo at this point.
Yeah, I do like 99% of my stuff solo now. Like I'll have a former college, like forward teammate or something, hop in some stuff for like, especially runs. Like tomorrow morning, I'm doing 10 miles easy. Like there's a couple of guys meeting up for it. Like there's enough of a group for that kind of stuff around here, which is nice for me. Cause that's where, like, to be honest, I would rather have dudes who do my mileage work than do my track workout. Cause in track workout, I can get up for and like go at it. And obviously like it'd be easier on some workouts more than others to like have a pacer, but I would rather have all my 10-mile easy runs with people versus like every single track workout if I had to pick one or the other. So I have a lot of that here. And I mean, I was part of the Oregon project. I mean, technically it was with Donavan, technically it was with Craig. Did more training with Yomif than either of those two. Donavan and I's training is like so different, but I think if you looked at it, like, I think Bryce and I probably have the most similar training when it comes to like, we're both like more on the strength side, but like I'm way more on the strength side than what Bryce is. So even then, like my strength work wouldn't come near to what like Bryce does. But that works for him. Like Isaiah and I wouldn't line up. Like it's like, but Isaiah and Bryce wouldn't line up. Like Isaiah and Donavan would. It's like, if you take the top 5 guys, like we're not really lining up anywhere. So like to train together anyways is not necessarily like a difference. And I remember when Donavan joined, like that was a discussion like people had was like, is this like, or am I just helping my competitor, you know, to make the team? And it's just like, and Donavan and I, we talked about it, it's like, we could both go and get the exact same resources and training, like to an extent without each other. So like, why not just like, there's not really that big a deal to be in the same group. So that's like where that stemmed from. Cause like obviously spent 2+ years with Donavan training. So, been through that rodeo. I mean, I'm never like going to discount the fact of me potentially like joining another group. I probably won't move again in my career. I'll probably stay with coach here. But like if the right opportunity arises for like athletes to come train with me, like by all means, like I'm not going to like turn down the opportunity, but I think a lot of people think when you're in a training group, you train together and it's like, there's always give and take because it's always someone's workout that someone else is doing in the broad scheme of things.
Yeah. I guess it's so different when you're like at the top of the world, I guess, versus even, I don't know, you're still like at the 99.9 percentile, but there's like so many other guys like at the sub elite level where there's so many guys that are basically the same level as you. And you can kind of get away with that of like, you know, everyone in the D1 team is doing the same workout today or whatever. But then to get to that like last little bit % improvement that you need to medal, it does take like sole focus on yourself, which is, it's crazy. There's a lot that goes like, into it.
I think back. Yeah, exactly. I think back to like my college days is like, in like a lot of honesty and like my teammates knew that. It's like a lot of the workouts were built around like what ultimately was best for like me and one other guy who were like the better like mile or 5K guys. And then everyone kind of meshed their workouts in with us so that they could reap a benefit from us. And then obviously we can reap a benefit from them as far as like, if 3/4 of the workout they can do with us and 3/4 of that workout's really good for them, like they're reaping the benefit of us dragging them along and vice versa. And like you said, like there's ways that I run, let's say I'm doing 10x400, very common workout for 800 milers, like all the way through, like, but the way that like I take my rest, the way that I run the specific 400, could vary drastically from if like, let's just say we're doing 10x400 to 60 pace, like a very like just straight up mileage workout. Like the way that I run it could vary drastically different than the way that someone else runs it.
Do you think being married to another Olympian has, you know, affected your training, if at all? Does it a big motivator to have someone there that gets it and is on that like world stage and keeps you motivated and support and all that sort of stuff?
100%. Like she understands like what it takes. I mean, she's been at levels as high or higher than I have. So like she understands what it takes. She's been through some things that are great learning experiences that she shared with me. And so she for sure is somebody that like I can lean on and talk through and keeps me in check when things are not necessarily like going right or they are going right. And she makes sure things continue to go right. Like she's, you know, got that little subtle, like, should you eat that? Like, or should you do that? Or should we, like, so there's always that. And like, I think it's tough when you don't have that person who understands. It can be a little tougher because it's like, well, I want to go to the movies tonight. It's like, well, is that really best for my work tomorrow? Like, but it's Friday night. Like I worked all week, you know, like there is always going to be that little bit of like give and take, and there still is in our relationship. But at the same time, it's like ultimately like she understands like it's not as easy as just like showing up to the workouts and going through the motions.
Right. It's a full-time commitment. So you two met playing Uno at an after party in Rio, right?
Yeah. That's what the Wikipedia says. And that's what you said on another podcast too.
Well, first off, who actually won the Uno game? Was it either of you or is it an outside party?
We met in the lounge. Yeah. Just like hanging out in the village. I don't know where the after party, but I just like, we did play Uno. I've never admitted that I lost, and I've kind of backed off from the fact that I've won. So I just always say it's like up for debate. It's like one of the one things that like I've kind of not given up on as far as like. But
like we weren't playing official rules.
Yeah. Well, that's where I learned about like Uno out and all these different things. So like we're different. Yeah. So like I always use that as an excuse and stuff like that. So it's not as cut and dry as like who won and lost. We'll go with that.
Are you two like in regular day-to-day stuff? Are you two competitive with each other, or is it more
Jesus,
just?
Yes. Like we were playing. I remember we went to my gym, and my coach at my gym had some like family and some of us over that trained on a regular basis for New Year's Eve, and we were playing Taboo, and she got like so competitive over it, and then I'm starting to get competitive. I'm like, we have our entire like TV stand like thing buffet is like full of board games, and it's like
nice. It's
like dummy competitive over stuff. Like we'll like mess up the game if like one of us is losing too bad and stuff like that. It's something that we've learned to not let affect us, but early on there was for sure that like competitive.
Have you two ever like stopped? Like, is there any board games that are on the do not play list, like Monopoly or Risk or something like that, where it's like maybe like for the safety of our marriage we're not going to play this?
No, I think the more competitive games we like do more. Like we play this game called Cover Your Assets. It's like involves like stealing and stacking like assets together. So like you're trying to like stack all this money together, but then you steal from each other, and like that's like the most competitive like thing you can pretty much do. And like Ticket to Ride is like built around like you connect the trains and like you know how you can block people and like see what they're doing. Like those are two very risky games that we play of like can end very badly and have ended very badly. Like
games that have like encourage
cards
conflict.
Have been thrown across the table at the end of the game. It's like super, but like we continue to go back on it, and like we'll just like randomly like finish dinner and be like, cover your assets, let's go, and we'll just like throw down for like 30 minutes at night, and like we'll play like we'll play Mario Party on the Switch and stuff like that and get at it. And like sometimes it's like one person's like playing better than the other on the night, so then you kind of realize it and you kind of keep your wins to yourself. But if like you're both playing well and it's really close, like competitive juices flow. That is, it's facts.
Yeah.
I just bought Cover Your Assets. I just went on Amazon on my phone right now. I just bought it because my wife and I played all sorts of games. That's like a big thing with our friends. So that's a new one. I have not tried that one yet.
That one's huge with friends. You have to loop back around with me on that one, because that one's one that every friend that comes over comes back and we that one's in a full circuit. Like that one's got the most wear of any cards we got for sure underneath.
Okay. What do you have any other? You mentioned a couple already. Do you have any others or that are like top notch? These are the best for like a group of like 4 people, 5 people.
We play Ticket to Ride, Cover Your Assets. We play a lot of Uno, the old school Uno. Man, we're big like What Do You Meme and like Cards Against Humanities when it's like a party. Sure. And we got these like, I don't know, we have like all the party games from Target. Like we went and bought them because we're like big hosts too. So like we're always having people over for like parties and stuff. So like we're always buying a new game when people come over. Like we bought this one game, I don't remember what it's called, but it was like first and last or something like that. So it was like the last person to like unlock their phone like has to drink or like do whatever you're trying to do, or like run and touch your nose to the fridge, and like the first person to do it, the most random things. So, like people were like running around the house doing it. Like that was a lot of fun. And then we have this like accent game that you have to like say the card in an accent, like these most random stuff that like there's not many that don't get played like very often. I should say that.
I like it.
That one. What's the one trivia game that you have?
Smart Ass.
Headass? Oh, Smart Ass.
It's
I think we might have that.
It's a yellow box. Yeah.
I think so.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
We have like the old school, like we have like, the Family Feud ones. We have all the old school, like Life, Monopoly, chess, like all those. Like we started playing this game. Her and I play this game. It's like a 2-player game called like Quilt Work or Patchwork or something.
Okay.
And it's like you have this time board, and by the time ends, you have to like fill out your quilt with like these Tetris patches. And we've only played it a couple of times, and every time we play it, and as we play, it gets more and more competitive because we're like learning the tricks of it. But that was like a quick one for like if you're just looking for like a 2-player game, like that's something that's like we play on a regular basis.
I'm gonna end up spending all my money on Amazon. I'm gonna go buy that one too now, because 2-player games are harder to find. Like I have many fun 4 to 6-player games, but I don't really have many 2-player games that I'm super in love with.
When you two host, and you play games that are team based, are you two usually on a team or are you on opposing, or is it split down the middle?
I think it depends on the game. Yeah,
sure.
It depends on the game. If like we trust the other person's going to be a good partner.
Sure.
Like if we know each other's gonna be good, then like we obviously like team up. But if we're like, man, I don't think
so. It's
like,
to your own. It's to your own advantage.
Oh, 100%.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So do these game nights get rowdy at all? With like you're a wine fan, correct? So is there usually some wine flowing as well during these game nights?
Especially in the fall, especially in the off season.
Yeah.
Like we had a bunch of people over like in the fall. Bunch of our closest friends, and like that night ended like 2-3 a.m. like, you know, and like they're not as bad as like college parties. Like, I mean, they're not that bad, they don't end that bad, but I mean for like mid-20s like adult parties now, like they get flowing, they get competitive, you know, drinks get spilled, you know, like it gets going.
You Venmo each other like the next morning because you're like, hey man, you might have to buy a new rug, sorry. Spilled wine on it. Yeah. As a guy, I started drinking Prosecco and some champagne. Well, give me some like wine recommendations. How do I break the barrier?
So you're like sweet. So like I would suggest finding Stella Rosa. That's what got me. And Ari had drank that. Like that's what got me hooked on. That's what initially got me into wine, was like Stella Rosa. So it's like it starts as sweet as like mango, like pineapple, like peach, like stuff, and then it'll go into like a red wine that's still a sweet red. But then like what got me hooked is like when I went to Napa, like that took it to the ultimate level. Like when we went to like visit that to potentially get married there, that's when like took me to the next level. I fell like so deep into it. So like I would say start there with Stella Rosa and then work your way to like not super dry wines, like Sauvignon Blanc, like not Napa Valley Chardonnays, like Rieslings, like Pinot Grigios. Like if you try to find stuff that's like not like super, super dry, but like neutral white wines, like those are like good wines to introduce yourself. And then you start into like a little bit of like the sweeter, lighter reds and kind of work your way through the palate until you find your like limit. Like Ari was like I never touched red wine, like hated it. And all of a sudden, like she started drinking Pinot and like, she's now this like huge red wine drinker. Like she wants to like have like, we'll split a bottle at dinner every now and then. Like, so like, your palate can evolve. Like even if you get to like red, like these are disgusting. Like your palate 100% evolves. So that's my suggestion, is like slowly chip away at it. And I suggest like getting an app like Vivino or something like that, where you can scan the bottle and then see, because it'll easily tell you like bold or light, like tannic or dry. Like it'll easily tell you on this like very like simple scale of like where the bottle falls, and you can kind of be like, okay, obviously I'm not going to buy this. Like why would I spend $20 on this? Like it's super dry. Like whereas a lot of people would spend $20 and they get burned on the bottle and they're like, I'm never doing this again. So
yeah, it's like, well, it's like so I avoid buying wine just because it's so overwhelming when you go in the store and you just see there's 1,000 wines. I'm like, how the hell would I know which one to pick?
That's why you got to get one of the apps.
Yeah, and I picked the one with the best label, and that doesn't mean anything.
You learn, like you start to learn like the types of grapes. That's where like the name of like, so like Cabernet, like Sauvignon Blanc, like all those like things are types of grapes. So you learn what type of grape you like, and then you can go from there and start to understand like, well, if I get this, like I understand it where like if I get Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand, it's going to taste a certain way versus if I get it from like Napa Valley or Sonoma. Like they're two completely different wines. Like I'm making like dinner tonight, and like I specifically picked like Sauvignon Blanc to go with it because I knew like if I got Napa, I was like, nah, like
I mean, genetically they're probably pretty different.
100%. So like it's all about like where you grow it, you know, all about the weather, the climate, the soil, like all that stuff goes into it. Like, so it's funny I'm talking about that because I got away from it for a little bit. And like last night, like my massage therapist and his like fiance came over, and like we had like dinner, and we had this like, we jokingly talk about like charcuterie boards all the time. So like we both kind of got into that. So like he brought the charcuterie board and I brought this wine, and it was like this random like Syrah wine from like Central Coast, California. But it was like this very specific like appellation that I thought was very weird. It was growing like Syrah there in my head. But then when I started researching, I was like, this is extremely weird. Like the location of this, the geography, like the grape doesn't match. And then I found out it was like the winemaker's like passion was like this, like was like Rhone varieties, which are France. And he was like growing them, not necessarily in the right like geographical region, but like out of passion. So it made these like, it's like different kind of wine. So I got hooked back in it. I pulled out all of my like research books last night, and I was like going through it. Like, I'm like, I might have just like hooked myself again. And now like 24 hours later, I'm talking about it again. So I might have just hooked myself again.
Yeah.
I like totally, I got scarred, this past fall when my wife and I got married, because it was like a really small wedding venue. It was like just us and the officiate. And when we roll into this guy's house, he's like a 70-ish year old dude. He's just chilling. He's obviously retired for a long time. And I like wasn't feeling good that day, like kind of sick, but I was like, we're not going to cancel this. Like I'm good enough to go. And we get into this house and he's like very like formal, and he just immediately hands me a glass. I'm like, all right, like I guess I'm drinking on like an empty stomach, and this is going to turn out how it turns out. And he poured almost a full glass of red wine and like expected me to finish it before he went down to the beach to get married.
I remember my first time I got burned was like at trials in 2016. Like I went to this like track and field news like celebration thing after I won, and to like speak at it. And I remember like one of the agents was like, "You got to celebrate," and handed me this glass of wine. And I remember carrying it around the whole night. I was like, if I don't drink it, everybody look like I'm drinking. So I just carry around this like half full glass of wine the whole night. But then like a year later, I'm like addicted to it and I can't stop like drinking it at some point. Like
that's hilarious. How many bottles of wine do you have at your place right now?
Oh, I used to have a lot more. I drank through a lot of my good stuff, to be honest. Like I stopped the whole like wait till like a perfect time to open it. I started just being like, it's good enough. Like let's open it. Like
I think that's overrated to wait for the perfect time.
Yeah.
Like I remember one night, like my massage therapist likes good wines. Like we always seemingly have good wine together. And like I remember like one night we ordered takeout. He just came over to like hang out with his like fiance, and we like opened up like $400 worth of wine that night for like tacos. And I was just like, there's not gonna be a better night at this point.
Right.
Like last night we had like $50 bottle. Like I'm just like, whatever, like stuff's gonna happen. Like we're gonna drink good wine.
Yeah.
I'd say I have like 20 good bottles, like good stuff. And then I probably have 20, 30 bottles of just like random stuff to like maybe more, maybe 40. It's just like random stuff. It's like local wineries I picked up here or there, like random stuff I bought off the shelf. And I probably should like drink most of that, but like, cause like the bad stuff gets kind of, not the bad stuff, the like not as like wanted drink wine gets shuffled to the back or the bottom of the rack, and then it doesn't get drank, and then it gets bad in a year or two. And it's just like, dang, I should have drank this like a while ago.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of good nights to be had if you have that many bottles though. And that is fun. Sure. Like you like saying, oh, I'll wait for the perfect night or whatever. And then it's like, well, then eventually you build up and you got like a whole wine cellar with 1,000 bottles. And how many good nights do you need to have in order to actually drink all your wines?
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, that's why I was like jokingly, I got a bottle of like probably like $90 12-year aged scotch, and I was like, I might just like pull this over for the podcast today and drink it. And my dad was like, no, like you need to go make sure that you like it, get a glass of it at a bar, and then like wait for a good time. And I'm like, dude, if I wait for a good time, I don't do shit right now. We're all in lockdown. Like it's going to be 2 years.
And if it's that good, you can just buy another bottle.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
All right. We have a couple listener questions to close out here. So you're into collecting trading cards, I believe. That at least this. Okay. So one of our listeners, Ray, wants to know: do you collect Kobe shoes on top of trading cards?
I don't collect any. I'm not a big shoe. I'm not a big shoe guy, if that makes sense. Like I know shoes. I like shoes. I have a decent amount of shoes, but like I'm not like a diehard.
A whole shoe closet.
So you're not a sneakerhead.
Yeah. I'm not a diehard sneakerhead. I'd say like my ultimate, cause like I collect a lot of like Kobe cards. Like, I mean, that's like my personal collection is like half Kobe. And I got like custom Kobe spikes made by Greg. So like those are like kind of like right now, but like my ultimate, like this year goal, I literally said somebody else is like, if I have a New Year's resolution, which I don't really do, like I was like, my goal this year is to like to get a Kobe signed jersey and put it in a frame with the signs, with the custom spikes. Like that's like where I want to go with it. And now like I have some like limited edition Kobe shoes. Like they're like, I have like the old school Nike Lunars, but they're like made into like Kobe, like they're like Kobe shoes. Like they were made by Nike, but like never released. I have some like Kobe All-Stars. Like I have some like Kobe stuff, but like nothing of like, don't have anything specific with like Kobe. Cause like the thing is like, to be honest, like I don't think Kobe shoes are like that super comfortable to like kick around in. Now I play basketball and like, I think they're like, I like playing basketball in Kobe shoes, but like to wear to like the store, like dinner, I'm never going to like kick on a pair of Kobe's. Like, so it's like something to me. It's like, I would rather have a pair of Jordans or like 5 pairs of Air Maxes for my account versus
Yeah.
yeah. So
what's the next pair of custom spikes? Like, what are you going to pull out for the next championship season? Do you have something in mind already of like what you're looking for?
it's funny that like I literally got a picture from Greg like an hour ago of the custom pair that he's with. So he said they should be mailed back to me on Monday. I don't know when you're posting this. He mailed back to me on Monday. Whether I debut them in my debut race or whether I wait till Millrose to wear them, that's the question.
Okay.
But there is again some Kobe tribute to these. I'll say that. I'll hint at that. Kobe tribute to him.
We'll fight off the urge to text him to spoil it, and we'll wait for you to bring him out.
We'll see him live on the track. This is actually kind of a funny one. So you used to wear short shorts, and you've kind of made the transition to half tights. So what was the decision behind making the transition from the short shorts to the booty shorts? That's the question from Marky Mark.
It's easy. So for me now, it's easy. So 1,000 meters and up is short shorts, and 800 down is half tights.
I love that. That's how I think about a lot of things too. There's a level.
I train in half tights more than short shorts.
Okay.
So, but I still lean towards short shorts for longer runs than like sprint workouts. But I'd say like right now in training, especially because I'm like in tights outside, like 7 days out of the week, I'm in like half tights, whether it's long tights, half tights underneath them, or like half tights training. When it gets nice out, like I will wear short shorts on like easy runs and stuff. But almost I'd say 95% of my track workouts are in half tights, but then 1,000 and up is split shorts. So yeah, you'll see split shorts in the opening mile. You'll see split shorts at Wanamaker. You'll see you'll see split shorts and half tights potentially at JDL. So yeah, you'll see the whole repertoire of this end of the season.
Yeah, doing it based on distance makes sense. Although I will say, there's the hugest flex ever in my mind is Grant Holloway running hurdles in short shorts. Like that is such a flex. I love that.
I did mix it up. I did wear split shorts at a couple 800s this year. They weren't. It was kind of like just like have fun with it and do something different. Because even like I started wearing the sleeve on like the right arm at the beginning of last season, and like that'll carry into it. But like even a couple times I threw on both sleeves, or like at trials, like I legitimately forgot to wear the sleeve in the final.
Yes.
Like I remember I did my whole victory lap. I got around and I climbed up on the rail to talk to somebody, and I like for some odd reason grabbed my arm, and I'm like, I literally remember my words were like, "Oh shit, I forgot my sleeve." And I thought back, like I put it in like what happened is like I always put it with my bib, like in my bag, so I know like bib jersey like sleeve, like it's just like this. And I remember like before the final, my Zach, my massage therapist was like, "Hey, you want me to put my bib on your bib on your jersey for you?" Like, sure. But we didn't put my jersey and my bib back in the same pocket. So then like in the call room, like everything's going but the sleeve, and then it became like a like did put it on. But it's really funny. Like people thought like, "Oh, that's like good luck you didn't wear it." So like,
well, it's funny because like Woody and some of the like Bowerman folks who are wearing they were doing the power sleeves. I was like, dude, that's a Clayton Murphy. They're a couple years late on that one.
Yeah. Okay, this is an inside story. I have no idea what's coming out of this, but from a former Zip, who doesn't want to be named, give us the story behind the hole in the wall at your old college house.
It's in all caps.
There's only a couple of dudes who know about it. So I'll probably run with probably 2 or 3 dudes who know about it tomorrow. It started as, so like we lived in this like shitty college house, like we all do. And so we had this like wall where it started as like, we had a big, like we did one year, we did a fantasy football draft with like the whole stickers, and like commissioner would stand up at the podium, like the whole thing, like everybody brought their laptops. Like it was like the real deal, like fantasy draft. Like we had 12 people in the league. Like it was a legit thing, put stickers, like the whole deal. Then it became like we had a separate league after that where like we threw darts at the dartboard, at the fantasy board, and whatever like player you hit, like that's who you drafted. So it was like a little bit more of like a random thing. And that was like between like amongst like the house guys pretty much. We did a fun league. Well, the darts getting thrown at like legitimately just a drywall wall became like, well, let's throw a hammer. And then the hammer became like
that escalated,
like it escalated. And then like it became like, I remember one day like one of my roommates was like drunk, and he was like trying to like mountain climb up the wall with the hammer, and like it threw hammers, and like at that point it just like escalated. Like there was like frying pans trying to like take down the drywall. And at one point, like the whole drywall was off and it was just like the wood slats behind it, like the old school like house with like the wood slats and cobwebs. And like I remember we got a text from Orlando where it's like, I'm coming over and like tomorrow. And we're like, well, what do we do here? It was at Christmas time, so we like Christmas wrapped the whole downstairs like walls.
Man.
So it looked like we wrapped it, and it was up for like till like March. And then I remember I came over to the house because I moved out of the house in January and like bought my own house. So I signed a contract. I bought my own house, but I came back in March to like see some people. And I remember like my buddy's like uncle was in there just like patching it, just like putting up those whole new drywall. And I never got a bill for it, never got a Venmo request, like just got to put up. So I was like, that's like the story behind it is like we pretty much like combined our dining room and living room into one room by just like leaving the slats up. Like we're just doing some remodel for the landlord.
That's like a quintessential coming of age story. I feel like every college age dude has some hole in the wall story.
Like I remember like some of the dudes on the team at the other house had a hole in the wall, and they like some dude got in a fight, got thrown into it, and then it became like who can put their head through it, which through the wall, and then like punching it. And then like certain people knew like behind the poster there was a hole, so like when there was a party go on, like people would like run into it on purpose and try to make the hole bigger. Then you get a new post. Like, so like 2 of the 3 houses the distance guys lived in had like massive holes in it at some point during like the 1 year.
I mean, once there's a hole in the drywall at that point, once it's so big you can't patch it, then you're going to replace the whole thing anyway. You're going to get charged the same.
You're going to get charged the same security deposit if it comes to that point, whether it's like a foot big or 3 feet big. You might as well
just replace the whole sheet.
Yeah,
exactly. Yep. Oh, that's hilarious. So someone wants to know about the beer mile as well, which I guess fitting because it's the Beer Mile podcast. Have you ever done a beer mile? Is this something that you'd be down to give a shot if you have not?
I haven't. I mean, I would probably. I have nothing against it. Just like I know OU always has like a big beer mile every year. Like at the end of the season, like our team would always go down there, but like I never ended up actually going. I like multiple times like committed to go and just never ended up going. Not that I'd ever probably run it. I didn't really drink until I was like 21 anyway. So like it was like before I was at like so I was like nothing against it. I'm not a great beer drinker. I'm a good like IPA drinker, but like I'm not a good like Bud Light drinker. Like I'm like just disgusting to me. So like it'd be like harder to just drink the beer obviously than run the part. I'd be more interested in like the Blue Jean miles and like the Croc 400s and like those like off the wall like crazy ones that I'm like those are to me like I'll eventually start like trying to check off and like see like I see like some like Nick Simmons does like crazy on his YouTube channel. I'm like I can't run in like the like bouncy shoe ski things like I roll an ankle like can't do that, but I can bounce a basketball around the track for a mile and like shatter that, like stuff like that. I might start like chipping away at some point in my career here.
Yeah, that'd definitely be fun and obviously good for the YouTube too. Yeah, a lot of the stuff that Nick does is just like obviously he has the record, and I'm putting air quotes on it because like no one does that stuff, or like he has some equipment that like no one has. But I think like
the Blue Jean one is
Blue Jean mile, the dribbling mile, like Crocs mile, like everyone could relate to that. And there's actually some decent bars set for those. So like
we had some funny ones. We were just talking about this the other day. We had some funny ones in college because like having a 300 meter indoor track, you could really get creative. Like we had some ideas of like the office chair like 300, like how fast can you push yourself around an office chair, like the bowling shoe 800, like we had that one, like how many like shin splints can you get in the same in a mile, like with the bowling shoes. We had like the one crazy one we had was like the blindfolded 300. So like put a blindfold on you got to make it to the finish line, and like your only obviously way around was like the outside wall of the facility, so you understood like okay. I'm at the wall, like but like at the same time there's like we're like that's just like craziness, but we're like that would be insane to watch and like record. Would just be like 3 dudes trying to run a blindfold 300. Like it'd be
so
insane.
You don't get a lead for that. That's
no lead, no like person helping. Like you run into a wall. You're like shoot, better keep going along the wall and eventually find a corner and keep going.
That's good.
Actually, the indoor track. Doesn't Loyola have one? Where did you?
No, DePaul? Loyola does not have one.
DePaul has one.
DePaul.
Yeah, we might get kicked out of there, but we'll try.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've thought about doing stuff there, but I'm like I'll get so kicked out.
Yeah,
there's too many people there too. I mean,
we've got
City of Chicago, it's too busy.
Got the treadmill beer mile on lock.
Treadmill beer mile might have to happen, but yeah. Okay. Giving us some good ideas. I like it. All right. I don't even know if this is anything or not. The person wanted to be anonymous. What's the beef with Centro?
I don't really have any beef with Centro. There was like beef to start over like a misunderstanding. And there was like a little bit of beef between like potentially us training together, but like we weren't talking for a while, like whatever. It was like not really any beef. It was just like we weren't ever really talking. And we've never been like, shouldn't say we've ever been friends, you know, we've never been like close. It's like it wasn't like all of a sudden we went from like being best friends to not being friends. But like, I mean, we message back and forth on Instagram from time to time and like see each other meet, we'll say what's up. Like I would not run with him if like we were warming up together, stuff like that. So like there's no like continuous beef, like, and it never really was like, I wouldn't even say beef. It was just like whatever. Yeah.
Okay, last one of the listener questions here. We got from Baby Jake. Give us your craziest Labadie story.
There's a lot.
If you can even pick one, yeah, right.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like for those who don't understand, like my coach is like old school. He's like first guy to break the 4-minute mile undergrad in the Big Ten. Like coached multiple Olympians for me. Like this dude's like, he's like straight up old school, but he talks like an absolute crazy man, and he drives with 2 feet. Like so his left foot on the brake, like right foot on the gas.
Oh no.
Oh man. That's a tough one. Like, I think like freshman year, I remember turning into the hotel and like he turned in front of his dump truck and the dump truck was like so damn close to our van. I thought we were like gonna like be T-boned, and I was in the back corner. And from that point on, I never trusted him driving. Like, so I mean, there's so many like weird, crazy stories. Like he was drinking one night before me. We went to like Joe's Crab Shack and the meet we were at with like my teammate and him and another coach, and like he was like, I bet my teammate to drink the butter for like $10, and like Labadie just like grabs it and just like throws down like 3 of them back to back to back, and he's like $30 right here.
Holy shit.
Like you're a crazy old man. Like your cholesterol, like LDL levels have to be skyrocketing now. Like he's just like this crazy old dude, and he's like, but he's the most genuine, like nice guy like ever, and like cares about me so much. I care about him so much. So it's like, as much as he's like this like old senile like doesn't stop talking guy, he like. He's such a caring guy. So like yesterday I drive to Ashland to work out, which is like an hour from my house. So usually I either pick him up or he'll come to my house and like he'll drive me in my car. And like yesterday, like I was working on my computer, I'm doing some work, and then like on the phone, even he's continually talking to me, even though I'm like on the phone with somebody, he's like still talking to me like about some like, I don't even like some 1980s, 90s race and something. And I was just like, yep. I just kept saying, like it's so like that's like it's so many stories to pick from. That's some of the best ones, I'd say.
He seems like it's less about a specific story, more just about like the character and like just being around it. So
you have to kind of if you spent like he coached like Robert Gary, like steeplechaser, and coached him like through his like Olympic time and stuff like that in '96. And like I remember as a freshman, like Coach Gary came up to me and said, "Man," he's like first off, good luck. He's like, second off, he's like, you got to find the diamonds in the rough. He's like, because he's going to talk to you and talk to you and talk to you. And he's like, but there's little diamonds in there that are really, really good. I'll tell you that. Like, if you can find the diamonds, you're going to be a great athlete. But he's like, it takes a while to learn what the diamonds are and what like the bull crap is.
I love that.
That's funny. We always close out with words of wisdom for listeners, which can mean anything. Like if you have any inspiring messages or just something stupid to leave them with. But honestly, what you just said is almost like the words of wisdom. Find the diamonds in the rough, you know. But do you have anything you want to leave our listeners with today? Anything to plug? I
can leave you with another Labadie wisdom on topics. Like one of his things is like, eat right, sleep right, dress right. So like obviously eating right and sleeping right, it's like important, but like dressing right, it's like doing everything else, you know, preparing yourself mentally for the workout, you know, like doing all the little things around it, recovery, you know, like all those little things kind of fall on the dress right category. So like that to me is like something I've always kind of carried since freshman year since I started using it. And so eat right, sleep right, dress right. It's probably like, I guess my words of wisdom. You can apply whatever you want to dress right. Like, I mean, I quite literally apply dressing right to it as well, along with other things, but it goes along in terms of like what I talked about, like all the little things that add up to being great.
Right. Yeah.
I like that.
Look good, feel good. Awesome.
Yep,
thanks for coming on, Clayton. Really appreciate it. Best wishes. And I'm most excited about seeing these, the next custom spikes that are about to hit the track. This is going to be hype.
Let's do it. Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you guys.